What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Here with another fantastic interview. Keeping it going with these legends, with these awesome, awesome bands, awesome, awesome people. Today, we're here with Empire. Empire, I was the loneliest eighth. Keith himself. How's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing fantastic. And, like we were just saying, you came off of this absolutely incredible tour culminating in Best Friends Forever. How was that? I mean, coming back together and then playing, in my mind, the biggest emotional, whatever you want to call it, event of the year.
Uh, I think it's hard to put into words how awesome it was. It was, yeah, you're right about the magnitude of how big that show was. Not just for us, but just in general. That's a show that like, do you know how, I'm not sure if you remember, but um, have you ever seen those like tour announcements where like, you can like, make your dream festival and you can put whatever bands you want. That's
Yeah.
kind of how I felt about this one. Like almost every f favorite band of mine was playing that, so it was very surreal, but it was awesome. Yeah.
No, I 100% agree. And I want to thank Chris from Vineyard PR for being awesome and hooking me up. Ironically enough, the way I found you and then Mineral and like all the contact information is that he did the press for Best Friends Forever. And I was looking through this lineup and I'm like, there's no
Oh,
way. I must
crazy.
be dreaming. And he sent me over all the information. So preface this by thanking him. And
Well,
yeah, I
thank
mean,
him too. Yeah.
looking at the lineup, literally mind blown. Mind blown.
Yeah.
Did you get to meet any of the people backstage, like Mineral playing their like final big show, which I discussed with them a little earlier, and then even just like some new emo artists, some old emo artists reunions, like the whole shebang.
Yeah. So what's wild to me is Chris and I from Mineral have been friends for actually, man, it's been over a decade at this point. Yeah. He actually sang, he lent his voice to a song on the last Empire record, and so did Bob Nana, who was in Hey Mercedes that played too. Um, and I was friends with everybody in Knapsack and actually quite a few bands, but no, there were a lot of people that I met there that I was like kind of like starstruck. I had met Jim Atkins before from Jimmy Eat World, but it was one of those things where he'd have no idea. I think I was around your age when we met, and so it was like a really, really big deal to me. And I kind of recounted like the time that I had met him back just when Clarity had been re-released. But we met. So they were nice. We met Mates Estate; those they were amazing, and Rilo Kiley, which are kind of heroes of ours as well. Yeah, it was just it was surreal because you could just everyone was there just like walking around. Chris Common, who was in These Arms Are Snakes, they also played, and Chris actually mixed both Empire albums, and we had never met in person. Obviously we had talked a lot online, and so it was really cool meeting him. Yeah, just the list keeps going on for me, like of cool people to meet, and everybody was super nice. So it wasn't one of those things where like anyone was pretentious or didn't want to talk or anything like that. So everybody was kind with their time. So
I think my favorite part of the scene has to be how supportive and not only creative but inspiring everyone is. Because even someone my age, who's just been getting into music journalism and
hmm
stuff, I've got, I've got connections with the band you just talked about. I think I interviewed their guitarist because of
Oh,
Russian
nice.
Circles, you know?
Yeah, oh,
So,
yeah, absolutely, yeah,
and he was absolutely incredible. And it's just, it, it makes my mind go crazy knowing that like from this one person you talk to, you're linked to Jimmy Eat World, you know?
yeah, oh yeah,
Like
yeah,
it blows my mind. And I think that's something super special about the scene, about everything. And another connection is that one of my favorite interviews I did last year, which was with Versus Self,
oh
this
yeah, yeah, yeah,
amazing screamo, like
yeah,
maybe the biggest screamo band right now, which is a big, big title. And the fact
yeah.
that they opened for you guys is pretty awesome. How was that?
I had actually never heard of Versus Self, and this would have been, I want to say maybe a year or year and a half ago or something like that. And they were coming through Detroit actually, and they're like, they hit up. So I have a current project called Mount Oriander, and they hit us up, and they're like, "Hey, we're big Empire fans, and so would you like to play this show with us?" And so we played a couple shows with them. and we just hit it off immediately. They're such amazing people, which you love to see. And with the way they're blowing up now too, I think that some bands would let that go to their head, but not at all for any of them. They're just incredible people. And so um um Kyle actually has an Empire tattoo, which is like pretty amazing, right? So anyway, when we were doing this tour, we were like, we got to return the favor and have them play with us. And so, yeah, we were able to do that. And then they were since New Year's played at BFF this year, we hung out a lot during the weekend. And I just really love and appreciate hanging out with those guys. And the same kind of prevailing attitude of everybody helping each other out and being like good and supportive to each other, they fall right in line with that stuff, and it's refreshing to see that. So yeah, and also, not to mention they put on an incredible show, and they're just really talented. So it's a joy to be around them. So
In my mind, I really do believe that emotional music's having the second resurgence, whatever you want to call it. And there's
yeah,
been
like a
so many
revival,
waves.
revival.
A revival, yeah, exactly. Because I mean, first itself, going crazy. Again, Kyle, maybe one of the best people in the screamo scene, still
Oh
responding to
yeah,
all their DMs, which is mind blowing. And
yeah,
then with New Mirrors, I'm glad you brought that up. That's another one of like the
hmm
the newer bands on that lineup,
yeah.
but they go crazy. And I remember just being like my jaw dropped seeing them do a national tour, playing like
Oh yeah,
200 person clubs, selling all of them out. Like, wow, and it's a
yeah. It's
beautiful
so cool
thing.
for them. Yeah, yeah,
And
and
the
it.
fact that it all comes back to you guys.
Yeah, well, I mean they and also getting to see like all these bands like knowing them and getting to see them perform is like a special, I think, bond, that you in like so like there's this big stage for BFF, and like depending on what there were two stages, and depending what stage, artists had the ability to be side stage, and got to watch a bunch of my friends' bands and bands I admired side stage, and it was just really cool seeing the joy that they felt playing too, and it kind of just like it's contagious. So,
100%. You can feel it radiate off of the stage, and that's a very,
hmm
very special thing. Might be one of my favorite things being a music journalist, getting to see some of these bands I get to talk to, in person, see their show, talk to them afterwards, and it really elevates the friendship. It's pretty
yeah,
awesome. It's an amazing thing. And speaking of Empire and Empire, doing this big tour, meeting all these awesome new people, that kind of gets me thinking the way that the guys from Mineral were telling me that they may have some new music on the horizon just out of rehearsals, out of working together and coming as friends more than anything.
hmm
That's a question that I must ask. Has anything been brewing?
I was
Anything on the
bracing for it.
horizon?
Well, so before we broke up, we did have a 5 song EP that we had written everything but vocals for, and we were going to go into the studio, and it ended up not happening. It's the only thing that we ever wrote that was not recorded. So anything that got to the writing phase, like a complete song, besides those songs, was recorded. Um, I don't know. I mean, we had a little bit of chatter about maybe reviving those songs, but it's not really. Um, this is more for me a one-off thing because I have, like I mentioned earlier, Mount Oriander, which is my current project, and I have another band called Parting. Um, that's like an actual band where we collaborate. Whereas Mount Oriander is my solo project where I play everything. Much like a lot of the, early Empire stuff or the mid Empire stuff. But I've learned through a long just from I've learned to never say no. The answer is maybe. I had when Empire was done, it was a definitive no. I'm done. I'm not gonna do this ever again. But like, for example, BFF was just such um an amazing show, such a validating show that I couldn't not say no. So I think if there's a situation like that, my ears sort of perked, but um There's no definitive anything. I can't give you more than that right
Of
now.
course, no, but I love that the door might be open, the window you can peek through, whatever
Right, right.
semblance of whatever there is. I love that. And again, props to BFF. Like they need to fly me out, hint hint, and give me tickets, hint hint, and let me go, because all the work that this specific festival has done in terms of making people talk, making people think, making people listen to old records. Again, it's a cool cultural kind of resurgence, like we talked about, and I love hearing that some more and more of these bands are kind of just like, maybe we'll do something, maybe we won't, but even just talking about it is a start.
Right.
And a follow up to that would be doing this really impressive reunion tour. You did miss some of the Southeast United States, especially my hometown of Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah,
So
we gotten an earful from East Coast and anywhere we didn't go about that stuff.
I can imagine.
Um yeah, yeah, and I don't know, I really enjoyed the tour and it was incredible. I've half a mind where I just want to keep focusing on Mount Oriander and parting stuff. Um but I'm now force myself to not say it's not an impossible thing, but it took we had as I bet most bands who kind of got to our level and then broke up, and we have had a number of places and people ask for reunions, but like famously or infamously, my answer was always I'm a huge Detroit Lions fan, and so like I would always say, and I wanted to make everybody else a Lions fan because that's one of my favorite thing of all time. And I always said, when the Lions win the Super Bowl is the only condition in which we will get back together. And that might happen this year because they're quite good. That is, but um, we made an exception for BFF. I'm not sure if there are going to be any more exceptions or not, but it would have to be something really cool. So
Well, listen, when the Lions win, you got to make a promise to me and
I'm ready.
you got to let me book like parting, let me book whatever, if it's a solo project, if it's parting. I run a record label in Atlanta called Peg Leg Records for charity,
Oh,
where we
cool.
donate like the label proceeds,
Oh,
if it's like
awesome.
$50, if it's like 200, depending on the show, to different causes like the homeless,
That's
Gaza,
really admirable.
wherever whoever needs it. So,
Hmm.
hey, when the Lions win the Super Bowl,
That's the answer I like. Yeah.
when
Yeah.
the Lions
And
win the
then
Super
we'll
Bowl, you got
talk.
to come down. Exactly. And being like, I really like the way you talked about, breaking up at this high point in your career, essentially, right? Because with a band like you guys, I mean, what it takes to move forward is a classic at this point, right? I think
Thank
we
you.
can admit it's a class. I see them on the ground over there.
Yeah.
Like, it's a classic.
We finally repressed it. It had been 10 years since it had been 11 years I think since it had been in print, and so for this tour we finally repressed it. So
I know. I bet people were happy, ecstatic, even. But
yeah, it's pretty
ha
wild.
what is like the thinking, especially when you're coming up with set lists, even when you're doing your solo shows and with your band, like your current band, what is this overlap between Empire and maybe your current day-to-day life having essentially an emo hits record with every song? I mean, I'm looking at your Spotify right now and every song is like charting. So like how does that bleed into your life? Do people come up to your normal shows and ask for these songs? Do people still, I mean, where is the buzz? Where is the chatter considering that you guys have this essentially massive album and then poof, you know?
Well, I mean, for Mount Oriander and for parting when we go on tour, um, I do, I am well aware that a large percentage of the reason that they're there is because they want to see, you know, what I've been up to since then. One of my really good friends, Alex Roberts, he's a buddy from the UK. He actually came over and he did merch for us. I just invited him to come hang out on the tour, and then he came and did merch for us. And actually, he even played bass for one show because our the way the tour was routed, our bassist had work and couldn't get off, and so he filled in for a show. Last year around this time, around the summer, he came over and just spent a week here, and it happened to be during a Mount Oriander show, and he jokingly, but he was like, I'll come, um, over, but only one request is that I get to play bass for How to Make Love Stay, at your Mount Oriander show. So we actually, I was kind of strict on not playing any old songs, any different bands, but then he came over and we played How to Make Love Stay. And it felt good doing that. And we actually incorporated that into a number of our sets just to kind of give a little bit, because I have to say that, like, for example, one of my favorite bands was Knapsack. It is Knapsack, but like Blair, the lead singer from that, I didn't get to see them when they were a band in their first run. And I remember seeing one of his he's had a lot of projects, and I remember seeing one of his projects past then. I think it was Racket Club or Gel Sound, but I think it was Racket Club. But anyway, they played a Knapsack song, and for me that was really special because that was the closest I was going to get before I actually saw Knapsack or whatever. So I kind of feel like throwing in one of those songs was sort of my homage to Blair and Knapsack, throwing in one of those songs, in their current band set. So, um, but yeah, I mean, I have a lot of people. It was wild because I have a lot of people when we played. I mean, the most common refrain was like, we never expected to be able to see you as a band or whatever. And my kind of response was I also did not expect to be back as a band, but here we are. So happy to do that run. But it's a weird thing because I think time has this way of like you say, it's like, you consider it a classic now, but I mean, when we released it, it was like to almost zero fanfare, and it took years and years for people to like start caring about it. And I never expected to the level that people, care about it now. That like BFF would be like, you know, ask us to play, something like that. So it's grown beyond my wildest dreams of what I expected it to be, and I'm very humbled that it means, so much to other people, and that, yeah, and it's crazy because that thing is like it came out in 2009, so it's like 16 years old at this
That's when I
point.
was
So
born.
yeah, so
That's crazy. Yeah, now
yeah.
you put it in perspective. And talking, even going around the same topic, I think it does have to do with the writing. Even looking at like Mount Oriander, which in my mind has success, you know?
Oh, thanks. Yeah,
Like
yeah.
if you look at even parting, you look at these bands compared to like your local scene bands,
Right, right.
and you've got a following, like people will come out to your shows, and that's in my mind success. And I think it comes down to the songwriting, especially in Mount Oriander, and listening to Empire Empire, even like your hit or top song, whatever you
Sure,
want to
yeah,
call it,
yeah.
um, like whatever you want to call it, it's the songwriting, and it's almost this weird, interesting lyricism that I haven't really
Mm.
encountered before. Maybe like, you talk about lungs, you talk about body parts, you talk about it's almost like a wailing, desperate need, personified into words,
Hmm.
which is something that's really beautiful and unique to your songwriting. You as a person, how do you foster that? How do you make sure that your songwriting keeps unique in a genre that some may consider a dead end? Like there's a lot of people that'll nowadays say every emo song sounds the same.
Oh yeah. Well, I think just I think when you're just like you're true to yourself and you write because you want to write, not because you're not writing. Being an artist, I think inherently is selfish, right? I'm making music for me. I'm making art for me, and I'm I'm happy when other people enjoy it, but it's not for them. It's for me. And then when it's out in the world, then it becomes something that other than itself. As far as like my writing, um, I don't know if this gives any credence to it or not, but I was an English major in college, and then I have a master's degree in library science. So I always loved literature, and for me, I think something that helps keep it fresh for me is that the most important thing for me really are the lyrics, and then word choice, I always choose word choice over melody. So I try to, so because the words, I think, when you talk about poetry, I think the word choice and also the absence of words is really important, right? So like every word should have a purpose for being there. Every word, so you cut any of the excess. Um, and so I choose, like if I want to say a specific thing, I will then say, I'm going to figure out a way how to sing this, as opposed to being like, here's a melody. What words can I fit into that melody? And I think that forces me to make more interesting choices vocally. It forces me to not get lazy and sort of fall into like a melody. And over the years too, I've gotten, and this is also apparent in Empire, but it became like a very linear songwriter. So like part A, part B, part C, part D. A lot of times there's not any repeating parts or very few repeating parts, which is funny because like, for example, Kathy, my wife, who is also the guitarist in Empire, um, she played the first show of this tour and then she played the last show, but we have two kids, so we can't both tour or whatever, right? So that was sort of the compromise that we were able to make. And my buddy Michelangelo, who's actually the bassist in Parting now, filled in on guitar, and his common refrain, and I actually borrowed a lot of people, but the common refrain was always like, "Oh, there's just so many parts that you have to learn for each song." So yeah, I think that's the other secret sauce is like not adhering to like unnecessarily a verse chorus verse uh situation. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but for me, I actually for the first Mount Oriander album, I said to myself, I'm gonna write a bunch of songs that are traditional verse chorus verse, and like I wrote one song like that and I got bored and just went back to like my normal structure, whatever that is. So
I love that. And I have some interesting thoughts on that. First of all, extremely helpful because, as someone that writes songs for a band and, does the thing, you talk about that greatly. And I think that every musician watching this will totally resonate with that because, yeah, it's hard to make it interesting. It's hard to make vocal lines interesting. And maybe that is the non-uniqueness and the non-conformity of the lyrics that really make your music. And while you were talking about that, that really did make me think. It's like Mount Oriander. It's almost like Phil Everham's project, right?
Hmm.
What's it?
That's very kind of you to say. Thank you. Yeah.
Crap. What's the name? It's
Mount
Mount.
Elysium or whatever.
Okay,
Yeah.
I forget.
Mount
But
Erie.
like
Mount
now,
Erie.
there you go. Okay, yeah.
Yes, I love
Ah,
Mount Erie
this
actually.
looks bad on me.
Some of the
Yeah,
most crushing but amazing songwriting ever.
exactly. And I do find some similarity there because I think that Mr. Phil does an incredible job with Mount Erie, where I mean, even listening to his most recent project, the lyrics are off the charts. It's like poems turned into songs rather
Mhm.
than songs that you read the lyrics on the back of the vinyl and it's like, oh yeah, that kind of sounds like a poem,
Yeah.
you know?
Yes,
And that
yes.
is super, super interesting. Another thing that I really got out of that, I love that that you were an English major because that might be the path that I'm kind of straying towards. Um, for There's a thing in Georgia called GHP, Governor's Honors Program. Yeah, it's a bunch of interviews, and then if you make it, you get to go to a college and take college classes for like all of summer, which is
Oh,
like a dream
awesome.
come true for
Yeah.
free.
Yeah,
There's
that'd be
no,
amazing.
it's nothing. And the one I'm going for right now is actually composition.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Um,
Yeah.
m- that's the one that was recommended to me, and I've really found a happy place, writing about that. So I really resonate with that. And I love thinking about teachers and music because one of my favorite interviews I've done was with Pat Flynn of Have Heart, the
Oh, cool.
different end
Yeah.
of the alternative spectrum.
Right. Yeah.
And he's a history teacher, which is super
Oh, I did
interesting to
not know
me.
that. That's really cool.
Would you ever want to go into teaching?
I thought about it. As a when I spent a number of years doing being a librarian, and actually quit that to come back and do the record label full time. But I imagine I will probably end up in that field. But there is a lot of youth programs that we did, and actually for a large number of years, I was a substitute teacher too. So it was something I enjoyed. My mom was a teacher. Um, my wife's mom is actually a teacher as well, and so is my um sister-in-law. So it's actually like that. It's a profession that kind of runs in the family. Being a substitute teacher, by the way, if you were ever in a touring band, is an incredible job because there's always work as long as the school year is around, and you never have to ask for time off. You can just say, not accept jobs for that period of time. And me and my drummer John were both substitute teachers for a long time for that reason. But I also it was also a fun job. So
Did you ever get like noticed or get like recognized? Did that ever happen? Like in
uh,
your
out,
experiences?
outside of music stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, it does happen occasionally, but it's a pretty there's a pretty stark the stark difference between like my music life and my non-music life because I'm very much a not important person and in that regard, right? In my non-music life, and I kind of like that. There's a David Foster Wallace movie. Well, it's about David Foster Wallace. It's called The End of Tour, and it stars Jesse Eisenberg and Jason Segel. It's this really, really amazing movie. And obviously, that guy was actually famous, not like anything that I could sniff or whatever. But like, he was talking about how like he really treasured that like the regular everyday person, and I kind of like that. So I live in a small town, and if anybody knows me here, it's not for music, it's for like being like one of my kids' dads, you know what I mean? Or like Kathy and I were like softball coach for Penny for a year, for my daughter for a year. So that's the kind of stuff that we're known for, not for that. So I kind of like obscurity, honestly. It's kind of nice. So
And the most interesting thing is that you're not alone. Pat Flynn told me the same thing where he was like, he doesn't enjoy being like, he doesn't enjoy his two lives meshing almost, you know?
yeah.
You teach to
Yeah.
teach, and then you do music to do music,
Right.
and he doesn't want the two things to kind of intertwine. That's interesting. And I kind of like that, you know? Does that help you keep peace of mind and maybe keep songwriting sacred for you?
Um, I mean, it might be a reason why I do that. I don't know. It just feels like um a natural like separation. It was really funny. So, for example, at BFF, um, walked around as a I was not only was I there as a performer, but I was also there as a enjoyer of that music and being at the festival. And so I walked around freely and like got stopped frequently to take pictures and autographs, which is wildly flattering that that's a thing. But it's really funny because the festival grounds were like here, say, and once you walked even slightly past the festival grounds, you're in Las Vegas. And then instantly I become like just a normal person again. And it's like I kind of like that like metaphor for being able to step in and out of um out of that sort of limelight or whatever. So, and I can't even imagine because again, when I say like took pictures and like signed things like that's it, that's rare for me for this tour and for music life. I cannot imagine being an actual celebrity and like the amount of like everywhere they go and everything they do, it would just be like I can't even comprehend that. So I can understand why somebody would also prefer that quiet life and having that like, separation between the two.
Yeah, yeah. That honestly is a great metaphor. And yeah, it's like your double life, you're a spy, you know? Getting,
I'll take
like a
it.
sleeper agent. Yeah, I think that's super interesting. And maybe that is kind of the sweet spot, like you said, of being a musician, being a celebrity, but not overwhelmed in a sense. Maybe I'm overstepping by saying that, but
Yeah, I mean, I'm not, again, I would like to, some put says downplaying, but I think I am not an important person. I mean, to some people I am, so I don't want to, because I guess, okay, let me back up a second. Whatever, whatever, when art means something to somebody, then you are that person to that person. But relative to what actual uh famous people are, I feel very far down on that ladder. But I like that because I think that my normal life is just like a very normal life, and then I can step into it when I want to, but I don't have to. I don't feel the need to. So like it's nice to have that where I feel like if you were somebody who was actually famous, that they would never be able to escape that. And that's got to be a tough pill to swallow because I think, some people want to be famous and that's like a thing they do it for. But I think other people, are they just can't not do that thing. Like I can't not write music. It's just like in my being, and if I don't do it, then I get upset. That's one reason why I have to write music. I don't feel fulfilled if I don't do it. So it's weird that there are any benefits that come from that kind of selfish need.
And like you said, music is to fulfill yourself. And whatever the product of that is, if it resonates with someone, that's great. But you
Right.
kind of have to have an ego when it comes to your music. That's one of the most important things I learned playing violin and playing guitar from
Oh,
my
nice.
violin teacher.
Yeah.
It's like you have to have an ego. Even if you're the most shy person ever, you have to have
Well,
an ego when
yeah.
you're making
Yeah.
music, or else you're doing yourself a disservice, which is
Because
insanely
you have to,
interesting.
right, you have to put the courage to put yourself out there, and whether that's singing or playing an instrument, like that's like uh it's a special thing to be able to do that. But like it is not for everybody. It's a difficult thing, and there are years and years of like being bad at it before you can even sniff being good at it. I mean, there's some people who are naturally gifted, and that was not me. So that was not me. So,
Well,
but I
let's
just
talk.
kept at it.
Yeah, yeah. And let's talk about that. That's super interesting. And that kind of leads me into my final question of the night, which is something that I used to do a lot and I kind of forgot about. And I want to bring this tradition back for my interviews. Are there some moments in your maybe younger life where you knew that music was the thing you wanted to do with the rest of your time on earth? Maybe as a child, um, going into high school, were there specific moments that you still remember today, where you knew that this is what you wanted to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things where like if you're unsure whether or not you feel that way, then you don't. It's either you know it or you don't. And so when I first really heard this style of music, it just like spoke to me in such like a deep resonating way that it just like changed me. And then like I just kind of fell into it. And I was like breadcrumbing myself into finding more bands and uh more sounds, and then it became something that I could not do. And like yeah, I think that for better or for worse, I think that's it's kind of a curse in some ways because I probably, uh, could have been monetarily in a much better position. I could have been in like uh, probably a better place in that regard. And there's a lot of hardships that come along with being a musician. Some of it because of the financial aspect of it, but um, I spent most of my life chasing that, and I think again that's it. Sort of didn't feel like a choice, if that makes sense. Like I felt like I just called to it, and so yeah, I mean, I I don't know. I have because and I've worked a lot of normal um jobs, and I have a like I kind of get restless if I stick around too long at those things, and so it kind of like calls me to back to this. I left this when Empire was done. And I run a label called Count Your Lucky Stars. And so when Empire was done, and I kind of wound that down for a while, um, just because I was like burned out from doing it for so long, but I was like unsure if that would come back, but it came back in a pretty big way, and here I am again devoting my life to this. So yeah, I don't know. It's if it's something that you can't do, then it's something that you have to do. And if you don't, I think that your soul will kind of die, somebody who feels that calling, I think that it's just not something you can let happen. It's not even not even a
It's
question.
a beautiful curse.
Yeah.
It's a terrible,
Yes.
beautiful curse.
Yes.
Well, I want to thank you so much for sitting down with me at 7:38 p.m. on a
Yeah.
Tuesday night, you know. Thank you so much for, being so communicative and open. This was a fantastic interview. I'm really happy with this.
Thank you for
And,
having me. I
I
appreciate
just
it.
congratulations on the tour. Congratulations on
Thanks.
everything. Like I said, if you ever want to come down to Atlanta, if your label ever wants to, collaborate or whatever, I'm all ears. I'm always
Oh,
down.
oh
And
yeah.
you got to say hello next time you're in Georgia.
Yeah, I would love to. I'd love to hang out. We gotta hang out.
Fantastic. Exactly. Well, again, thank you so, so much. Have a wonderful evening, and I'll have this posted as soon as I can.
I appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time to talk to me and also the insightful questions. It's nice to like not just have like always a cookie cutter template on things. And so it's nice to be able to kind of open up that subject those subjects. So
Thank you so much. I pride myself on it.
yeah,
Okay, well, you have a wonderful night again, and thank you so much.
you too.
Peace out.